The first time I heard of Jerry Falwell was during a class in my junior year of college. The class was on obscenity law, and my professor described the case Hustler Magazine, Inc. v. Falwell, in which the infamous pornographic magazine published a truly offensive and tasteless ad directed at Jerry Falwell. My professor clearly held a bias against Falwell, implying that he and his moral majority were opposed to free speech, they were unintelligent, and essentially religious zealots. 15 years later, I'm able to take a more objective look at this man and his influential organization. Anyone living during the 60s and 70s might say that for every successful advancement our culture made, there were equally opposite regressions. Although the 60s saw the March on Washington and passage of several influential civil rights legislation, there were also numerous assassinations of influential leaders, such as the Kennedy brothers, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King Jr. The sexual revolution became a widespread, permanent feature of American culture. And of course, the Vietnam War intensified. The cherry on top of this assault on traditional American morality came from the Supreme Court ruling in 1972, Roe v. Wade. A quote by Falwell in 1978 expresses the sentiment held by many fundamentalists of the day. The decision by the Supreme Court legalizing abortion on demand did more to destroy our nation than any other decision it has made. According to an article by Daniel K. Williams, Jerry Falwell was born into a difficult time during the Great Depression. His hometown of Lynchburg, Virginia remained primarily rural and essentially impoverished. The Cold War brought increased economic opportunities to rural regions, and in 1956, Falwell founded Thomas Road Baptist Church. Unlike other older congregations, TRBC created a TV station to take advantage of the new technological medium. As Falwell's congregation grew, it created its own social welfare ministry, serving alcoholics, impoverished mothers and children, and drug addicts. The Moral Majority was created in 1979 as a reaction to not only the Roe decision, but to the seemingly ever-expansive federal government into the lives of everyday people. Falwell's church had created an impressive social services network, and through programs such as Medicare and Medicaid that were created in the late 60s, it seemed that the federal government was steadily usurping this God-ordained mission. The Moral Majority created a wellspring of support for presidential candidate Ronald Reagan, who ran on a platform of reducing the size of the federal government. Reagan won the election in 1980 in a landslide in 1984, in part because of the activism of the Moral Majority. The Moral Majority supported a host of reforms initiated by President Reagan, including the limiting of abortion rights, tax cuts, and foreign policy. In 1989, after decreases in funding, Falwell suspended the organization, declaring that it had been a success. Critics believed otherwise, claiming the organization failed due to being out of touch with mainstream America. Jerry Falwell and his contemporaries are not without criticism. Falwell is condemned by modern historians for being a supporter of segregated private schools and supporting the effort of Virginia to close its public schools to resist segregation. A 2014 article from Politico slams Falwell as essentially being racist. Although, from our modern-day perspective, this is certainly a blemish, perhaps it's not fair to evaluate him through that lens. Falwell may have seen the issues of his day simply as government intrusion that limited individual freedoms. Despite some moral failings, Falwell had a lasting impact on conservative political American thought, and millions of lives were impacted by his ministry. Although the Moral Majority no longer exists in its former organization, Falwell's legacy lives on at Liberty University. In an article by Josh Krauser entitled "The Return of the Moral Majority," voters today are again voting in accordance with their morals. However, instead of voting against immoral policies such as abortion and sexual deviance, many voters now support them as being morally legitimate. Perhaps it's time for another moral majority that again supports the morality of traditional Christian values. I'm Russ Rolls. Thank you for watching.